Hey, all right. I hope everyone's doing well. Today we're going to be doing a discussion on why Ronald Reagan was a good president. I'm going to be debating the pro side. Julian, my opponent, will be debating the con side. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you and give you a little introduction. But I am the Red Pill Jew, and I will be debating Julian today.
Always happy to do a debate. This should be a fun topic. Since the time is very limited, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back.
Okay, thank you. So I was looking up Ronald Reagan's accomplishments, and I'm sure you're going to go over some of his failures, like the drug war and Contragate. So I'm going to just read excerpts from this article under Human Events. So the first major accomplishment from Ronald Reagan was the end of the Cold War, or at least the first Cold War. His ability to talk tough and his peace through strength method was able to collapse the Soviet Union in the process. Number two was Reaganomics, which was a way for him to cut taxes across the board. Yes, it did benefit the wealthy, but at the same time, it benefited everybody and created 20 million new jobs. Around 20 million new jobs were created. Number three, he revitalized the conservative movement. A lot of Nixon was very infamous when he left after the whole Watergate situation, and when Ronald Reagan took over, it was kind of a new sort of revolution. There's no Nixon revolution or Ford revolution. There's a Reagan or Bush revolution. There is a Reagan revolution, and that was in the 80s. Like I said, peace through strength. And calling the last thing I would like to say before passing the mic was his fact to call the Soviet Union at the time an evil empire, which was incredible. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you and have you say a couple points, and then I'll finish my points.
Okay, I'm actually going to throw a libertarian sort of argument at you for this, especially since you say the Cold War and the ability to talk tough about that and how he created new jobs and peace through strength. The thing is that his predecessor, Jimmy Carter, his deficit was $50 million. Ronald Reagan is $200 million. And Nixon had actually, during the Nixon administration, the Cold War had actually slowed down. So he actually heated that back up through this tough rhetoric. And it led to a lot of spending that wasn't necessary, a lot of unnecessary defense spending. So that's why I believe that it's a wrong direction. And as far as jobs go, my argument here won't be as libertarian. It's more of a jobs for who, because this is when the wealth gap increased under Reagan. So there were more jobs on the higher end, but the Reaganomics hurt people on the lower end. So those are my two main contentions: that he increased the deficit and that he created a recession, basically.
Okay. Well, yeah, there was a economic crash in '82, I believe. So yeah, that did happen under his administration. I wanted to go over some more of his accomplishments and then pass over the mic to you. I know the war on drugs, like I said, the war on drugs and Contragate were two of some of his biggest failures. The Star Wars program he created was the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was able to counter Soviet missiles that were coming to the U.S. There was also massive nuclear weapons cuts. He had signed a treaty with Mikhail Gorbachev, eliminating entire class of nuclear weapons. Like I said, I already stated the tax reform. So, I mean, Ronald Reagan probably will be seen in American history as one of the best post-World War II presidents of all time.
When I hear tax reform, I'm not really hearing an answer to my counter argument that through Reaganomics, through these tax breaks, that they hurt people in the lower end and they didn't create enough jobs in the lower end. So when you say tax reform, that's my contention, that they didn't create jobs in the lower end and that they led to a wealth gap and a recession. So I'd like to hear an answer for that. And and it's believed that he escalated the Cold War unnecessarily. So maybe he did do some good things with lowering the amount of nuclear weapons and this sort of thing, but it's believed that he escalated that as well.
All right. Well, you want to talk about the taxes. Yes, it benefited the wealthy, and yes, the poor did suffer a little bit. But some people have to suffer with tax cuts. So let me just read the exact excerpt. Reagan's mix of across-the-board tax cuts, deregulation, domestic spending restraint helped fuel an economic boom that lasted for 2 decades. So unemployment rates went from near 20% to 9% after the tax cut. So that's the answer to your question, that there was more jobs created. Yes, the poor did suffer a little bit, but that's just reality.
Well, I mean, of course, we saw an increase in the economy during those years because this is the tech boom. So I mean, I could use the same argument to say that Bill Clinton was a good president economically because we saw a tech boom, and which was a bubble also that burst. So I mean, I'm not sure. So what I'm saying is, I'm not sure how you're answering. I'm not sure if that's a good answer to how the economy, how do these tax breaks, like what did they do exactly?
They were able to cut taxes for the middle class and able to cut taxes for corporations.
Okay, but when they cut taxes for corporations, like how did that boost the economy?
It created more jobs.
Okay, I hear it created more jobs, but I don't know what job that is. I don't know where it is. I don't know what sector it's in. So that, I mean, that's very difficult to answer. And my understanding of this is that it's on the higher end, it's not on the lower end, and that it was a transfer of wealth because it helped corporations more than small businesses. So did it help a corporation or did it help a small business? Who did it help?
I would say both.
Okay, but I mean, this is a pro-con debate, so especially with, I mean, that I feel like, I mean, there is a burden of evidence on both sides, but I feel like there's a greater burden of evidence on your side to tell me how exactly that is, because I'm not sure the best way to answer that.
I'm not sure. I don't have the best way to answer it too. I'm not an economist, but what I do know is it is very. I admit it's very subjective thing for me to say that Ronald Reagan was a great president. I just try to weigh out the pros and cons, and I've seen a lot more pros than cons.
Well, we're just about both out of time here. I feel like, of course, so I only have a couple. That's out really quick, and that's always difficult to do. Of course, I do feel like the Iran-Contra thing was very corrupt, and I feel like the escalation of the drug war was also, because that's an increase in spending as well. I feel like the increase in defense spending was unnecessary. I don't believe it was necessary to expand the Cold War. I do think you have a good point that he decreased the amount of nuclear weapons. I'm not sold on this economy thing. I know that was a hard time, especially for people. And I mean, I only have 16 seconds left, and this is kind of a new argument, but this is to illustrate how it hurt people in the lower end and corporations more. Is that at the same time where these people in these higher tax brackets were getting cuts, and the people in the lower tax brackets weren't, he made it more difficult for the unions, for the factories, for the people who worked in the factories to negotiate with the unions. So it was a very tough time for people on the lower end, and this created a wealth gap. And as far as a boom, I mean, there was a boom at that time, but I would credit that to compute the technology, because this is when the technology boom happened, and that probably did last fairly for about 20 years. So I wouldn't give him too much. I can't give him too much credit for that. We both have less than 30 seconds, so I'll just pass it back, and well, I guess we'll have to finish this up, and maybe we can talk about it some more another time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this debate. I really appreciate it. Again, I really think that Ronald Reagan was a good president. The fact that he cut taxes and all this stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for this debate. I really had a